Hey, it's Nancy. Before we begin today, I just wanted to let you know that you can listen to Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music, included with Prime. According to Calgary police, in a city of about 1.5 million people, there are an estimated 14 people reported missing every day, which adds up to around 5,000 a year. There are a variety of circumstances that lead to a missing persons report. Maybe they don't show up for work or miss a dinner. Whatever the reason, family or friends are concerned and police are called. Cliff O'Brien is a superintendent with the Calgary Police Service. With nearly 3 decades of service, he spent several years supervising the Calgary Police Missing Persons Unit, which falls under the umbrella of the Homicide Unit in major crimes.
We don't have a 24-hour rule. You sometimes hear that you can't report people for 24 hours. That's not accurate. But where that comes from is that typically within 24 hours, somebody that has gone missing is located. There's been some type of miscommunication. They went to a friend's house, they stopped somewhere, they had a vehicle breakdown. There's usually some explanation for that. And so 99% of, or certainly a high 90% of cases involving adults, children as well, those people are located within 24 hours.
According to CPS, their solve rate for missing persons cases is 99.9%. He says the other 0.1% is rare. Those are the more complicated cases, the kind every family dreads.
I just knew there was something wrong.
I was just really worried that something horrible had happened to her, to be honest.
I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. Today, on Crime Beat, I share details of one of those rare cases, a mysterious disappearance and the desperate search that followed. This is Benevolence Betrayed. The Rockyview General is Calgary's second largest hospital, well known for its stunning location with views of the foothills and white-capped Rocky Mountains off to the west. Inside, there are over 650 beds, providing a full range of acute and outpatient care, from emergency and surgery departments to critical care, mental health, women's health, and cancer treatments. It also boasts an esteemed physiotherapy unit. It's what attracted Audrey Trudeau to join the team in the early 1990s. Her coworkers, Jane Crosley and Willa Martin, said the team was extremely close-knit.
We probably had about 30 physiotherapists at the time. I think that's one reason why I've stayed at the Rockyview all these years, is it really is like family.
It was a smallish department and everybody knew each other quite well, and we were all buddies and would hang out socially as well.
Audrey Trudeau was well known for her kind and generous spirit and dedicated work ethic, which quickly earned her the respect and admiration of her coworkers.
I remember actually being a little intimidated by Audrey because she was so confident and outgoing and just really sure of herself. But once I got to know her, she was like the kindest, sweetest person you could meet.
Oh, Audrey was very outgoing. She really got the most out of her patients. She would ensure her patients were accountable for doing their exercises, for arriving to appointments. And she was just a really, really fun person to work with.
You know, if you needed help with a patient, she'd be the first to offer help. She'd stay late to help you. She did things that just, most people wouldn't have done, and she just went out of her way.
In February of 1999, Audrey shared news that she would be leaving the team.
She was so happy. It was the happiest I've ever seen her. She was so excited because she was going to be moving back to Ontario because she loved her family and her siblings, and she was looking forward to going there. She had a job lined up.
The physiotherapy team planned a farewell party on Audrey's final day of work. But the guest of honor never showed up.
February 26, 1999 was her last day of work, and we had a little party, I think, at lunchtime a potluck, probably something like that planned. And so yeah, when we all got to work that morning, we were all quite shocked that she wasn't there, because she was the most reliable person in the department, I would say. So it was a bit of a shock.
We just all became very concerned. What's up? This is not right. This is not our Audrey.
Days went by and there was no word from Audrey. Rumors began to fly in the unit, and Jane said none of it made sense.
I heard that Audrey wanted to say goodbye to the mountains. And it's something that could have been done on the weekend, or it could have been done ahead of time. You don't miss your last day of work where you know there's been a party organized and you know you have charts to finish signing off on to go to the mountains. I did not believe one word of that.
Audrey had a reputation for being dependable, so going off the radar was completely out of character.
I was just really worried that something horrible had happened to her, to be honest.
Everybody was talking about it. We were all quite worried and just started to think the worst, because it was not like Audrey to not contact somebody. And then, we knew that she was going to Ontario a couple of weeks after her last day of work. And then we heard that she hadn't talked to her siblings or shown up there. So we were all starting to get really worried.
Audrey was raised in Ontario in a very large family of 13 kids.
Vicky, David, Paul, Jackie, and Francis. Mary, Hank, Sandy, Audrey, Sheila, John, and Jerry.
Her sister Frances said Audrey spoke with at least one of her siblings every day. So in late February of 1999, when she went silent, it was concerning. Her siblings started comparing notes on the last time anyone had heard from her.
I said, "Have you heard from Audrey?" And they said, "No." I said, "Well, I can't reach her." I said, "I've phoned many times and she's not answering me back."
The Trudeau siblings had been celebrating the news that Audrey was moving home to Ontario. She left the province in 1977 after graduating from the University of Toronto, moving west to pursue jobs in Saskatchewan and British Columbia before arriving in Calgary. Her new job was at St. Mary's Hospital in Kitchener, and it would bring her within driving distance of most of her family. Audrey listed her Calgary house for sale and hired a realtor who took photos of the townhouse and created a brochure touting the 4-bedroom condo as a room with a view. By late February, the only thing Audrey had left to do was pack, and she planned to finish that once she wrapped up work.
"If you want to talk to me," she said, "you phone me," she said, "before the 7th of March. Because," she said, "the 7th of March, my phones in the house will all be shut down." I said, "Okay." I said, "I'll do that," because I called her constantly.
Audrey was excited for her final day at the Rockyview Hospital. Her coworkers were throwing her a farewell potluck. That's why her family was so shocked to learn she had missed the party. Here are Audrey's sisters, Sheila Chiapetta and Mary Trudeau.
There was no reason whatsoever for her to be MIA like that. There's none whatsoever. That was so beyond her capacity as a person to do anything like that. That's why we knew something was wrong.
I just knew there was something wrong. And she was supposed to call us when she left, and she was going to call us at different stops along the way. And when she should have been on her way, she wasn't.
Two weeks had passed since anyone had spoken with Audrey on February 25th. The start date of her new job in Ontario was supposed to be March 15th, 1999. So by March 11th, when her siblings had still not heard from her, Audrey's family reported her missing to the Calgary Police Service. Here's Calgary Police Superintendent Cliff O'Brien.
Calgary Police Service received a phone call from Audrey's brother on March 11th, and he was representing the family and was very concerned that nobody had heard from Audrey or seen Audrey for a couple weeks.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, police get a lot of reports of missing persons, and most are located within 24 hours. But given the explanation that Audrey had gone to BC and was juggling a lot of different tasks as she got ready for her move, panic didn't settle in with her family for a couple of weeks.
In 1999, things were quite a bit different. Social media didn't exist. Cell phones operated differently. And so it was much more challenging for investigators back then, but we were looking for footprints of life. It is very plausible that, maybe she went for a hike, maybe she stopped to visit friends, maybe there's just all kinds of possibilities. So we're trying to determine, has anybody seen her? Has anybody heard from her? The fact that she didn't show up to her work party, which was scheduled for February 26th, was concerning. And so we know on February 25th that she had been bowling with friends. We also know that in that evening, at about 9 o'clock or so, that she had talked to a friend of hers on the telephone. And so that was the last time that any of her friends had seen her or spoken to her, was on February 25th.
After that, she had just disappeared. No one had heard from her.
The more people we talk to, the more friends and coworkers that we talk to, the investigators are starting to hear various stories from these different friends. They have heard different stories about where Audrey might be. Some have heard that Audrey had to leave because there was a family emergency. Some have heard that Audrey went to meet somebody. Some people heard that Audrey went to the mountains. Some people heard that Audrey just was depressed. And so as the coworkers in particular start talking to each other and comparing what they've heard, they're starting to go, this doesn't make sense. This is very suspicious.
As the investigation continued, police learned through Audrey's coworkers and family that she had recently helped out a coworker.
Deborah Point was somebody that worked at the same hospital that Audrey had worked at. She was a porter at the hospital at Rockyview. They were friends, and Audrey very kindly gave Deb a place to stay at the end of January of 1999.
Deborah Point was a porter at the hospital. One of their main jobs is transporting patients to different departments for tests or procedures. At that time, the physio department had several dedicated porters who brought patients for treatment and then returned them to their beds. Sheila and Mary said Audrey told them Deborah had recently gone through a difficult breakup, was down on her luck, and short of cash.
Had no place to stay, and Audrey had the house and her place, and said, well, I got a spare room. You're welcome to stay there until you sort yourself out. That's the kind of person she was, because she did that before.
She had to leave her apartment. Her girlfriend kicked her out, and she didn't have a place to go. And Audrey being Audrey, she offered her a room at her house with a couple things like, help pay some bills and a little bit of rent, but that was basically how it came out, and it wasn't supposed to be forever. It was just to help her get her through her tough times.
Audrey told Deborah Point it would be a short-term stay, just until she could get back on her feet or until Audrey left for Ontario in March, whichever came first. The porter moved into Audrey Trudeau's townhouse on January 3rd, 1999. In the days following Audrey's disappearance, her siblings Mary, Sheila, and Frances all reached out to Deborah.
I phoned a couple times, actually, and spoke to her roommate and asked for Audrey, and she would keep telling me she's not there. So I would just tell her to call me when she got back. And she never called me, so I'd call again. And she never called me.
Because I called one time and she answered. She did answer. And that's when I found out, oh, she's in BC. And I go, why the heck would she go to BC? Just say goodbye to the mountains. And I'm going, no.
I think on the third or fourth call, I can't quite remember, and I said, you have her phone me. I want to talk to her. Yeah, okay. Well, she never phoned me. She never phoned me.
Police also received a call from Deborah Point on March 11th, the same day Audrey's family had reported her missing. That call was recorded, and I'm going to play several excerpts for you.
You know, like people at work are, you know, they say like, you know, have you heard anything yet? Like lots of people are worried.
Yeah. Well, I don't blame them.
The roommate told police that Audrey needed to go to BC and had asked her to call her manager at the Rockyview Hospital to let her know she wouldn't be in for her final shift.
She was supposed to go into work on Friday, okay? But between me and you and her type thing, they were going to throw a little tea for her on Friday.
Right.
And she thought after 13 years that was kind of an insult. So she really had no intentions of going in, you know?
Okay.
She was just going to call in sick. But unfortunately, you know, like she said to me, that, you know, there's something I need to deal with. Can you please call Annette in the morning and tell her, you know, that I had something to deal with and I won't be able to be in, right? Mm-hmm. And I went out and I came back and she was gone type thing, and you know, and unfortunately she left a little. She did leave a note, right? I don't, but it's gone. Of course, it's been 2 weeks. It's in the garbage. Her car's here.
Yeah.
Her car's here, and I've got her SO card. That's all I've got.
Mm-hmm.
As the conversation continued, Deborah Point told the officer that Audrey's townhouse was on the market. She said she was concerned because Audrey was gone and they were in the middle of last-minute renovations that needed to be finished before the home was sold.
You know, we've got the kitchen floor ripped out here, and we're supposed to get a floor tiled in and stuff, and there's, oh man, like, you know, it's just so many things. She wouldn't leave. I mean, the floor's not no big deal. When she comes back, it'll take a weekend to put it in, you know?
Yeah.
But it's just that she knows that has to be done. Yeah. She hasn't gotten in contact with Ed, the realtor, right? Why? Like, does that make sense to me?
At the time, questions about why someone would renovate their home so close to their move-out date weren't asked, but they would become significant later.
We don't at this point have any reason to search for her, but what we do is her name is put on Canada-wide on the computer as to be located. So if she comes to any police officer's attention, whether she's in a car accident or a hospital says we have a Jane Doe, we don't know who it is, however she would come to our attention, we would then match it up that way, okay? As it is right now, we have someone who may have left of her own free will.
I just wish, you know, she'd walk through the door, that's all.
I know. It's pretty tough not knowing.
Then, 4 days later, on March 15th, 1999, Deborah Point called police a second time.
It's Deb Point calling, and we filed a missing claims report last week type thing, and the weekend's kind of gone by, and I haven't heard anything. I was just wondering if there was anything that would put my mind a little bit at ease here.
Okay, who's missing?
It's Audrey. She's my roommate.
Okay, there's been a lot of people checking on...
Yeah, family, everybody.
Right, but we have not located.
You have not?
Audrey has not been located.
I haven't heard much from the family this weekend either, stuff, right? So I thought, well, am I just going crazy? So I just thought I'd call just to see if there's anything. I'm just worried.
Investigators went through the statements provided by Audrey's family and roommate. They also spoke with her coworkers at the Rockyview Hospital. Superintendent Cliff O'Brien said things weren't adding up. For instance, if Audrey left for the mountains, why didn't she take her vehicle?
As we go to the house and we're doing inquiries, what we notice is that Audrey's car is still at the house, so that is strange for us. Deb was also concerned that she had not heard from her roommate. She thought that her roommate may have gone to the mountains to visit the mountains before she left Alberta. But she was also concerned, and we asked her to come in and so that we could talk to her. And she voluntarily went to the police station so we could interview her.
That interview happened 3 weeks to the day after Audrey missed her final day at work, on March 18th, 1999. The officer audio recorded that conversation. Some of it's hard to hear, so Superintendent O'Brien will provide details for clarity.
Detective Trudeau and Detective Olson to interview Point at 2 district offices. Now 4:17 in the afternoon on the 18th of March. So, nervous?
I'm
Worried about your roommate? And we are too. We're investigating a missing person. I guess Audrey went missing here a little while ago. And nobody seems to know what happened to her.
I'll just give you some information because I know you're going to probably come across a few surprises or whatever, but I've never really related to the name Deb. Okay, so I like Chris.
All right, so you moved in around the end of January then,
Yes.
And things were going pretty good and never had any disagreements or anything?
Never.
She also reiterated what investigators had heard, which is that Audrey was really missing the mountains and was going to miss the mountains when she left for Ontario. She said that Audrey had told her that she was going to go to British Columbia, to Kelowna, before she made her move to Ontario.
Okay, and what day did she leave?
She left Thursday evening.
Thursday evening?
Yes.
Deb Point told us that Audrey said that if she's not back by Friday, that she could go to Rockyview Hospital and pick up her last check for her. That would be really helpful. Deb also told us that Audrey had a very nice sapphire ring that she left with Deb to look after while she went on her trip, and also told her to look after her vehicle.
Mm-hmm. Where's the car now that she owns?
I have her.
Oh, you do?
As the interview continued, Deborah Point brought up the ripped-up flooring in her roommate's townhouse. She told the officer that the day before she was last seen, on February 24th, Audrey decided she wanted to renovate.
She had wanted to get rid of the carpet in the kitchen forever.
Who had, Audrey?
Audrey. She even had parquet little flooring blocks picked out.
Oh, really?
That, to choose from and stuff.
Okay.
So we decided Wednesday night that we were going to rip the thing up and roll it out. I think it was Thursday morning before she left for work that we took it out.
Thursday morning? Where you took what out?
The carpet.
Then, the conversation took a more direct turn. The officer asked Deborah Point if she knew what had happened to her roommate.
What do you think happened?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
So people are suggesting that something might have happened to Audrey here. You know,
Nothing happened.
Yeah, if you know what I mean.
Nothing.
So I'm not suggesting that for a minute.
Nothing happened to Audrey.
No, we just want to cover everything. If you know what I'm saying.
Nothing happened to Audrey.
That same day, Deborah Point gave police consent to search Audrey's townhouse.
Again, we have a very cooperative roommate, and they asked permission to be able to go to the residence and take a look at the residence and see if there was any indication of where Audrey may have gone. You can tell the carpet has been ripped out, as Deb said. So that was one of the first things that they saw.
Police had a copy of the photos Audrey's realtor had taken a month prior. And as they walked through the home, they couldn't help but wonder about the truth behind the 11th hour carpet removal. If Audrey did decide to renovate and put in new carpet, why focus solely on the dining room and not the living room as well, especially given it was all of similar age and wear? It raised further red flags for police who were already incredibly suspicious. They also noticed a comforter was missing from one of the beds, again in comparison to the original realtor photos. And then they noticed scrub marks on the wall. The forensic crime scenes team was brought in. Their examination would reveal evidence hidden to the naked eye.
The crime scenes unit used luminol, and luminol is a chemical that reacts to blood. And under certain lighting conditions, you can see what might be blood. It still has to be tested, but it might be blood. And so they luminoled the floor, and they found what they believed to be blood plus drag marks from the main floor down to the basement.
Samples were sent to the crime lab, and results would take time. But the presumptive tests were enough to change the direction of the investigation.
It's always difficult when you don't have a victim, but it was pretty clear that investigators were more than suspicious at this point that there had been some type of foul play. Investigators now know that something bad happened in that residence.
No one could have predicted the disturbing discovery that was still to come.
This is not something that anybody would expect, and it's horrific.
Like, how could somebody do this to another person, let alone my sister, you know?
It felt like I was watching some B-grade movie that just had a bad director. It was terrible.
That's next time on Crime Beat. Crime Beat is written and produced by me, Nancy Hixt, with senior producer Dila Velasquez. Audio editing and sound design is by Rob Johnston. Special thanks to photographer-editor Danny Lantella for his work on this episode. Thank you to Jesse Weisner, our Crime Beat production assistant. And thanks to Chris Bassett, the VP of Network Content, Production and Distribution and Editorial Standards for Global News. I would love to have you tell a friend about this podcast. There are 6 seasons of stories you can listen to and share. And if you can please consider rating and reviewing Crime Beat on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. You can find me on Facebook at Nancy Hixt Crime Beat and on Instagram at nancy.hixt. That's Hixt. Thanks again for listening. Please join me next time.